every good novel has a little preface. A lot of people skip over it. Why? It's so good. This is a preface moment, okay? I want to know, when did you start realizing that you were a people watcher? Because people use that as like this fun hobby you can do. Like, let's go to the airport and people watch. But I don't think they understand the level of people watch we're talking here. And this is something you and I really get along with. I've noticed we see different things, but once we take the time to hear each other out, we're like, oh, cool. And you've expanded my perspective because you see people all the time, almost like it's an affliction for you. So you have to like go hide in your hidey hole sometimes to like decompress from all that you notice when you are out in the world amongst the living. When did that start, though? I want to start with that. When do you remember you being such a watcher of others?
Interesting question. And I have to start it out with this because I'm still kind of a little boy at heart, and I love superheroes.
Okay.
So I just think that people have superpowers still.
Agreed.
In fact, I just rarely believe things are... I just don't think everything is as literal as we think it is. In my mind, thoughts and actions aren't very far apart. They're all either not physical or they all are physical. Ooh. They all kind of connect, right? So for me, a thought about a business idea or something can turn into a real business, and the thought and the actual thing aren't in a different world.
Okay.
They're all kind of connected. So saying that's one of my superpowers, I think, and I think everyone has them. And the reason why that's relevant back to your question is because ever since I was a little boy, I remember literally living in San Antonio as a 4-year-old, and I remember...
Which is how old our youngest is.
She's 4, yeah.
That's
weird.
I know.
Because I remember having thoughts, like a lot of thoughts as a 4-year-old.
I know, yeah.
And I was people watching. I was watching how they did things. I wasn't aware that not a lot of people do that, though. So I was existing in a world where I saw a lot of things happening, and I just kind of assumed that everybody saw they were happening. And so a lot of things were confusing to me growing up. And I got in a lot of trouble growing up for just like doing things, you know, making moves or making decisions.
Because you were experiencing the world differently than your peers?
Yeah, I think so. And it wasn't as dramatic until I got a little older, you know.
How old? How old do you remember having like a little bit more complex thoughts about these people? All these people around you.
Yeah.
Because you had a lot of people growing up with. That's a big, big home. 10 people in one home.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people interaction. That's a lot of thoughts. And then also you attended group gatherings in religious fashion every week where you could have a lot of observations and thoughts. When do you remember, do you have any memories of like certain things standing out and you having more complicated thoughts about them? And are they any that you can share on a public podcast? Or are they too specific and you have to take names out?
I can share them. So I remember, I think for me, it started getting a little more real around maybe 6 or 7 years old. I remember some experiences at 7 and 8. And I just remember things like, when I was growing up, I was Mormon, for example. I remember getting baptized. I remember learning the Articles of Faith, which was a set of scriptures that my parents wanted me to recite. I remember thinking about how that would make them feel. And I remember also thinking about how that would make other people feel. And then I would think about how those emotions would connect and how that would create another emotion, like another type of dynamic to the relationship or to the environment and I remember thinking about how someone could do this or someone can do this, and that's going to create this dynamic, but then whenever these things are happening, that creates this dynamic. And something that my mind always does is it connects a lot of things where I can see many types of outcomes that are not only possible, but they're likely to happen. So I've always really gravitated towards things like chess, where you have to think 3 or 4, 5 moves ahead. But you also have to think not only 5 moves ahead, but where each of those different moves could create a whole different metaverse of possibilities in that game. And so I've always existed in that world, but I don't think it started really getting super real until I was like 7 or 8, until I started having a crush on girls. And so I started...
You had a crush on girls at 7 or 8? Actually, I think I was pretty fond of like...
I think I had crushes on girls when I was like
characters.
4 or 5. I remember I had my first kiss when I was 5, and I had my second kiss like 5 seconds after. I kissed the girl on my left, and then the girl on my right wanted to kiss also, so I kissed her. But yeah, of course. And I think like with girls, and then also with when I started caring about what people thought about me a little more, less childlike and a little more like, oh, I need to be cool, or they don't like that. Maybe I need to be likable to them. So I think it started for me really young, and I could see it all, and it was very stimulating, and I think that borderline unhealthy. I think that our children have that, and I think that's something that we've helped them navigate through really well.